seemed warm enough. What else? A couple more. Maybe 3 more that I'm thinking should be up here. At least 2 more.
Education has to be in there somewhere, but I'm not sure how.
Why is education helpful? I don't know that it's a basic need.
Oh, well, that's what I was thinking.
It's not a basic need, but we do need some education for survival. Why?
Because we can't live if we don't know what is good or bad, what we can eat, what poisonous,
Right.
everything
So at
else.
the basic level, it helps us meet our physical
physical
needs. It helps us stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm educating my 5-year-old now on not running across the street without mommy, even if there's a bag of cookies in the car. Happened yesterday with his buddy after school.
Mm-hmm.
What about community or family interaction? Connection or interaction with other people?
So that would be value
okay.
and worth, right? Because if people bother to connect with me, I'm valuable. If I'm interacting, I'm a part of something. And therefore I have value and worth. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I want to go back to education because it's important you brought it up.
Well, actually, it would tie in with all of those. But I'm trying to think what the umbrella is you're after.
I'm not after any of them. It would tie in with most of these. Yeah, if I'm going to be purposeful, I have to know what the heck I'm doing.
Knowledge. Everyone, as you see so.
I think
So,
a fun,
I mean, you don't have to have a PhD. That's not a basic
No,
human need.
no.
You do have to have some kind of education, fire hot, right?
So
We don't need
we're going
these
to
berries.
say knowledge,
Yeah, well,
accumulating knowledge.
That's valuable.
Or yeah, I think that can come out of these things, right? So if I'm going to be safe, I have some knowledge about stuff. I know who's safe. I know what's safe. I know who to stay away from. I know who to stick with.
How about play? You gotta play.
So
Does that go? Where does playing go? You know, relaxing and playing and having fun.
I don't know that that's a basic need, but I think that it would go along with some of the physical needs, right? My body needs this certain...
To laugh and, you know,
Yeah,
happy.
to be healthy,
Emotional
my body
stuff.
needs to have that, right? So there are emotional needs. I'll put this one down, but I think when our emotional needs are met, when we feel like we have a
you're
sense
right,
of value.
you're right.
I think our emotional needs are met when all of these other needs are met.
Okay, cross
So
it out.
No, I'm leaving it. I think it's a good one to have.
Spiritual.
There's not.
Yeah,
This
that's
is different
fine,
every
yeah.
time we list it.
Yeah,
I just
fine.
want to make sure that the major themes are covered.
That's a good one. She didn't
There is a few more on here.
Their spiritual needs or not.
I think so, but in my mind, I'm going to put emotional, spiritual right here.
Oh, okay.
In my mind, and again, everybody's a little bit different. I'm not saying yes or no. In my mind, I would think that
Value or
those are met in some of these other ones that are coming up. But I think those are very important, absolutely. If my emotional needs are met, then I feel safe and
I've
secure.
got shelter.
If my emotional needs are met,
got
then I
love.
have a sense of value and worth. Because usually we're so interconnected. If I'm an island and I'm isolated, my emotional and spiritual needs are not going to be met.
No man of an island enjoys himself.
That's right. So the other ones, just for the sake of time, that I think are incredibly important, a sense of personal power and control. We all need that. And he might still be hungry. And familiarity and predictability. Can everybody see this board? If not, I'm happy to read them off.
Thank you.
Familiarity and predictability is often taken for granted, but it's huge. All of these together, I mean, this is the bingo big one, right? All of these needs met translate into an overall general sense of security. I feel secure because my physical needs are met, my emotional, spiritual needs are met. I feel like I've got some purpose, some value, some worth, got some power and control. I feel safe and secure. This is the big one. So all of these kind of feed into that. Familiarity and predictability
Hospice of
is
Ukiah.
huge in terms of creating a sense of safety and security. In fact, people who use torture know that very well. They disorient people, they switch up their sleeping patterns, they blindfold.
They're open till 5.
Being disoriented means that nothing's familiar. Being disoriented means there's no predictability. It's incredibly
Open till 5 then.
disarming. And, you know, there have even been studies among people who were abused. People who tended to cope better, people who had better outcomes, were folks whose abuse was predictable. Why?
I'm having trouble understanding the word predictability in your context.
And it's just, I'm not even meaning it in any particular context. Just anything that, anything we can predict. Something that is, I can't think of a something that we can count on. Yeah. We can count on this happening.
If we're going to cross the street, then the cars are going to stop and let us. Very important.
So predictability, if I know that I am going to get hit every time Dad comes home after drinking,
You can do something.
if I'm in his way,
Yeah.
I can make sure that when I hear that car pulling to the driveway, I'm in bed with my eyes closed, right? If I know that every day at 4:30 I'm going to get lashed in some prison somewhere, then I can prepare for 4:30. Mentally, I can prepare for, here it comes, it's going to be this way, at 4:15 it's going to be over, here's my routine. Predictability is kind of routine. So people who can predict what's going to happen to them can prepare. Predictability helps us feel safe because we feel prepared.
Their little one just proved that to us, didn't he?
How so?
That he called for mother
Mm-hmm.
and called and called. Now he knows that if he cries and does that, he can predict that you're going to come.
Right. And if I don't come, that's going to be really
It's
tough
going to
for
be
him.
a great, big problem.
He'll be
for him.
very distressed. And
Yes.
he'll have to figure out something else that's predictable, right? Our routine is going to change when my maternity leave's over. And he might cry and cry and cry for me for a long time. You make me cry. And until he realizes, okay, I can predict that I will have Mom from this time to this time. And as soon as he gets to the life stage where he's got object permanency, then he will know Mom's gone, but she'll come back. So he can predict that. Right
Yes.
now he doesn't have that. Be a while.
He has no idea that when you walk away, that you will ever return.
But he will know that when he cries, somebody will soothe him.
Right.
But-
And so we can't always, we might have to have a
And
stand-in.
he's not all babies are even sure of that, so that
Right.
we have to get that familiarity
Right.
and
Right.
predictability.
And if there's
That's
not
where,
that-
that's where predictability would be very important.
So I'm not saying that routine with people with dementia so that we can facilitate that predictability. That's not what I'm suggesting here, because I think sometimes we rely too much on the routine and then we get frustrated when the routine hasn't cured them. I'm suggesting that even the routine after a while becomes unpredictable for them because their brain doesn't remember our routine that we try to make theirs.
So we real quick, we take away those number 7, don't we?
The disease
You
does.
take away familiarity and predictability.
But we can create a
With
sense
Alzheimer's.
of familiarity, right?
How?
We're going to talk about that later. So if I, just to kind of belabor this again even more and make it illustrated even more how distressed people are with dementia, because really the dementia robs them of all of these things. We have to create a sense of power and control. We're not going to give someone the car keys or the knobs to the stove or the power tools when they're not safe to use them. But those are all things that help us feel powerful, right? We're not going to give them we're not going to give them control over making decisions where the outcome really, really matters urgently. Because what if they make a decision that's not using good judgment and everybody suffers and they're not safe? But we do want to give a sense of personal power and control. And one thing I learned, and I quote from John Coombs, the gentleman in his videos, I was listening to him speak in New Orleans years and years ago. And he was talking about life review and all of the benefits of it. One of the things he said was that telling a story puts a person in a very powerful position. They're creating information, they're passing information on, they're in control of the content, and when we correct them, we take that power away. So we can create a sense of power and control by simply not correcting. They're in control of the content. They're in control of that story. They have the power to create something. They have the power to impart knowledge about something to us. Now, whether or not it's accurate information is beside the point. If our goal is to connect, we don't want to take that power away. And often when we contradict, that's when we see combativeness. People really, really bristle at that. Because we've taken their power away. And guess what anger does? Anger makes us instantly powerful. That's what anger does. When we feel powerless, we get angry. It's survival. And it's not calculated. It's not, oh, John insulted me, so I'm going to get angry with him so I can feel powerful. It's just instinctive. I feel vulnerable, and I got to make myself big and loud to feel powerful. I don't feel seen and heard. That's what in my mind, when I don't feel seen and heard, I have to get bigger and louder. So we can facilitate a sense of power and control simply by not contradicting. We're going to learn other ways as well. Familiarity, we can create a sense of familiarity. Maybe not predictability, because I think that with dementia, the predictability is gone. But we can create a sense of familiarity by doing those things that familiar people do. I didn't take people to the bathroom by saying, hey, Bonnie, do you need to go to the bathroom? I'll help you. I'm going to the bathroom. Let's go to the bathroom right now. Bonnie would say no, and then wet her pants. I said, but I asked you if you needed to go, and you said no, right? I might walk up to Bonnie and start singing, I left my heart in San Francisco, because I know that's her favorite song. And then we'd dance a little while in the chair. And then I'd have her stand up with me, and we'd dance a little while together. And then we'd hold hands singing and humming, walking to the bathroom. Because familiar people sing together. Familiar people dance together. If I'm singing with you, if I'm dancing with you, I must know you. If you know my favorite song, you know me. And we're in the bathroom together, holding hands and singing and feeling familiar, even if I just met her 10 minutes ago, because it's my first day on the job or it's her first day there. Feeling familiar. And then she feels safer letting her guard down and allowing me to help her in the bathroom. Does that make sense? So we're creating a sense of familiarity, a sense of power and control, a sense of emotional and spiritual needs being filled. Again, I think that these are filled when all of the others are filled. And if I know something about their spirituality, or I know something about what's important to them, I can help a little more. But spiritual needs can be filled regardless of religious background. A lot of spiritual needs can be filled sitting out in the sun, listening to the birds. Things that just feel replenishing to your soul. I mean, most religions that I'm aware of kind of have a reverence for the natural world and natural beauty, right? The heavens declare the glory of God. You know, there are those things that are spiritually fulfilling that don't necessarily require us to be versed in Buddhism or be versed in Christianity. But those things that are kind of universally appreciated that fill our spirit and fill our soul. And I think if we're sensitive about that, we're not going to get into a spiritual talk with someone because that's not our role. But we can still facilitate that by connecting in a soulful way. And I don't think that we run the risk of patronizing or insulting. I think once we open our mouths, we do. So we can facilitate the experience and not have to run a commentary on it.
Remember the video I sent you of that woman who sang with that woman and ended up being Jesus Loves Me, I think. That's what she sang to her, and she hadn't talked at all, and she started singing the song, and gradually this woman was just like, just slowly came up and out.
It's like viola.
Yeah.
That's right. You connect on that spiritual level. And music just taps right into that right brain. You know, you don't have to chisel too much. One of our clinical social workers is also an art therapist. And one of the classes that we offer that he teaches, among others, is an art therapy class for caregivers. And art therapy, my goodness, he did an activity with the statewide Caregiver Resource Center staff a few years ago. And you know, we're all clinicians. We all thought, oh, you know, this will be intellectually stimulating. This will be really interesting to learn about. We were all sobbing because it's right brain. It just goes right to that emotional place and cuts through. And so art, music, those sorts of things can be very, very helpful and comforting. Because they go to that emotional place, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of intellectualizing or logic or reasoning or memory to appreciate something beautiful. And a lot of those things are familiar and therefore comforting. Somebody. Yes.
I just was going to say with my aunt, because she can remember past things, I sing row, row, row your boat, and this old man, and just try to get her in, and she'll remember some of those old things, you know, from the past, childhood songs.
And row, row, row your boat's a good one, because it's repetitive, and repetition can be comforting. Rocking is repetitive. You know, the repetition is very, very comforting.
Not to mention that the last line.
Yeah, life has been a dream, huh? Yeah. Purpose. We can create a sense of purpose by giving people jobs where the outcome doesn't matter, by allowing people to rummage through things without saying, Bill, no! You know, you don't leave things out if, you know, you don't leave your family heirlooms and say, Bill, can you please put the china away in the china cabinet? Because that's just a setup.
It's the same thing with kids, really. You're getting into their level and seeing their world through their eyes as opposed to what we want them to do. Oh, let's look at this book and do this.
The emotional need, the need behind giving them a sense of purpose is the same. For a kid, it puffs them up, it helps them to build confidence, it helps them to feel competent. Helps with people with dementia too. With kids, the difference is that builds and builds and builds. And with people with dementia, we're always in the moment. Somebody in one of my groups said it's like Groundhog's Day every day. Have you seen that movie?
Yes, I love it.
So a sense of purpose we can absolutely fulfill. But guess what? What if they're in the late stages like Viola and they can't do a job? Didn't he give her a sense of purpose?
You made me smile.
You made me smile, do you see? I like spending time with you. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm sticking with you. Those are things I would say all the time. Thank God you're around. Thank you for putting up with me. And that gives them value and worth. Often purpose and value and worth kind of intermingle. These are all really interconnected. So giving people the opportunity to have their dementia however they have it, and reminding them of their value. Even if they're driving you nuts. I mean, you might have a really challenging day. The truth is, and we got to talk about the elephant in the room, because I'm not here to teach you how to be with lovely, lovely, unchallenging people. You don't need help with that. The truth is, you might go somewhere and the person you are caring for might have a really annoying, repetitive behavior, and 2 hours might feel like 10 hours. Thank God you're there, because their loved one has to be with them day in and day out. And so to tell somebody who is driving you absolutely bats, boy, I'm so glad I'm here with you today, might feel hard to do. But if you recognize, boy, if I give this person a sense of purpose, their purpose is to, in this moment, they're helping me with something. Thank you so much for letting me help you with this. I used to say that all the time in the bathroom. It's always the bathroom. And I don't know how much personal care you'll be doing. Hopefully not so much, but it might come up. But with anything, thank you so much for allowing me to help you with this. I know you don't need my help. Wink, wink. But I was sent here to help, or I used to say what my mother said, because that's long-term memory, right? People understand, boy, if your mother tells you to do something, you better do it or you're going to be busted. People get that. But my mother said, I have to do this today, and if she found out that you did it and I didn't, I'd be busted. So thank you for letting me help you. It doesn't mean, though, they're happy about it. Some people would be happy and say, oh, yeah. Some people might still be reluctant, but they might reluctantly cooperate. I mean, all we're looking for is to get the task met in those situations, right? Thank you so much for letting me help you in the bathroom. I know you can do it on your own, but if they found out I didn't help, I'd be in trouble, so I really appreciate it. And now I've turned the tables. They're helping me not get in trouble. I'm not helping them. They don't need my help, right? Sense of purpose. They're helping me. So obviously physical, biological needs, those sorts of things. We're not going to starve people. We're also not going to force feed somebody who doesn't want to eat. I mean, this one I'm not going to open up too much, because this one's we're going to get into a lot of ethical dilemmas here, right? Mm-hmm. But I would guess in your capacity as respite volunteers, you're probably not going to be administering medication, so that's probably not going to come up. I would hope that they would have their medications administered before or after you get there, or during, by someone else, unless you're, unless that's part of your role. But, is it too hot? Is it too cold? Sometimes in July, people with dementia in advanced age need a sweater. Sometimes, that happens. People might be in the shower and the water pressure might feel really hard on their thin skin. So are we being sensitive to those physical needs in as much as we are able in our role? And always creating a sense of value and worth. I think basic kindness reinforces this one. But sometimes we don't take for granted that they're understanding that, because they're perceiving differently. So it's okay to kind of name the obvious. Like John did. You're smiling. Yes, I know. And that makes me smile too. Do you see? Yes, I see. Right? So you might be being very kind. You might be doing all the right things. Don't take for granted that they're picking it up. It's okay to point it out. I see you're smiling. That makes me smile too. Boy, boom. Thank you, John, for that line.
How many of the Alzheimer people now are we warehousing, and how many are home with their families? What percentages?
I don't have a percentage off the top of my head. I'm not sure about that.
Is it more, do you think it's
More
more
people, I
one
think more
way?
people are at home because they can't afford the placement. And there's not access, and a lot of people want to remain at home. So as much as people can have as much as they have the resources and access to resources to stay at home, they're keeping people at home as long as possible because that's most people's desire. Then the other issue is access to facilities and the resources to pay for them. So more people are at home. I don't know the exact percentages.
What are the government's things on this for putting people into facilities?
What's the government paying, are you
Yes.
asking? It's different from state to state.
What's the
In-
state?
In California, the Medi-Cal will help pay for skilled nursing facility, will not pay for like any residential care for assisted living, only for skilled nursing. And that's getting, Elizabeth and I were talking about that, that's getting harder and harder to come by. A lot of times they're just referring people for rehab rather than what we would call custodial care, which would mean they could be there ongoing. Rehab is temporary, and then sometimes Medicare will pay for that, and that's federal, but that's time limited.
Because we're looking at
Rehab
the
is always considered time limited.
We're looking at the breakdown of families.
Mhm.
As you see the amount of children that are raised in a one-parent home, this sort of thing, and we're not looking at this, having the family, and the family takes care of, in my time, the family took care of everybody.
Yep. And life is getting more expensive.
And now it's not at all.
Yeah. The other thing is life is getting more expensive, so both heads of household have to work in those
And
families.
Alzheimer's is now the disease.
not someone there.
It's the one that's up on top now.
It's
Yes, just
growing.
before that, we had cancer and breast cancer, and before that, I'm in the time of polio, and we go through these things, and Alzheimer's is the one now. So I was wondering what's really the needs are.
Mm-hmm.
I try to look at everything in that way. I'm reading a book that thick on Khrushchev's life that he wrote, and a book this thick on the ambassador to Russia at that time. I'm reading them together so I see what the two people, one saying and how you put them together. Now, afterwards, does that mean I want to be a great authority on Russia or anything else? No, it's just interesting.
Sure.
And when I ask the question, does it mean I think that we should just dump all these people into a place away from home? Or do I do what I would do, is keep everybody at home? I can't do either one.
No.
I could just ask.
Sure. And I think that's the most respectful thing to do. Ask people, what's your preference? My preference might be different from yours. My culture might be different from yours. I might not want my children caring for me because I might want to save face in front of them. And I might want somebody that I hired to provide my personal care so my son doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. So, we assume everybody wants what we want, and that's not always the case. So I appreciate that. So all behavior is an attempt to fill an unmet need. Most of the time with the list we have here, we can try to decipher the messages being sent to us through the behavior of a person with dementia. That's a really long sentence. Did that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the behaviors that we see are often seeking to fill one or many of these needs on this board here. So I want to show a couple of clips where they put this into practice. And we're going to refer back and forth to this list of needs. What I want to do before we do that is pass around the sheet for the ABC method. And ABC, as you'll see when you get your form, stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. There will be extras. Feel free to take more than one if you want. At the end, when there are extras, you can grab another one when you go home, but I want to make sure everybody gets one first. So, antecedent, behavior, and consequence. And because I like to complicate everything, I am a little bit more persnickety with this tool than the folks who in the video are. And the reason for that is because I want this tool to be as useful as possible for you. So this tool is really, in my mind, useful as a guide for what worked and what didn't work. And I think that's really the way to look at it. If we look at this tool as evaluating whether or not we were a good caregiver, it's not going to be helpful to you. Because we have to be honest about what happened in the interaction. We have to be honest about our part. And if we feel judged by the stinking tool, we're not going to be honest. We're not going to fess up, right? So we want to be honest about what happened so that we can, as objectively as possible, evaluate whether or not in that interaction the techniques we used worked. That's it. Did that work this time? No. Guess why? Well, let's look at it. Let's chart it out. Not, oh boy, you're mean. You said that? That's not helpful. So there's no value judgment here. It's just whether or not that technique worked. So if this is going to work, we have to be honest about what happened. We have to put on our thick skin to be able to really look at what took place. And we have to try to be as objective as possible. So I always tell people, if something really sticky and hot happens, don't use this tool till you've simmered down. Don't jump right to the ABCs. What's going on? I got to do my ABCs because I'm going nuts. You won't have the objectivity. Wait a few hours, wait till the next day, and then in retrospect, use the tool to learn from it. Does that make sense? So the relationship between A, B, and C is this. A affects B. The antecedent triggers the behavior. B triggers a consequence. And in effect, C becomes a new A and triggers another behavior, right? So if I had paper along the whole hallway, I could do A, B, C, 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 but I don't, so we're going to go back and forth. Now the video won't do it that way. The video just goes A, B, C, boom. But I think it's helpful for us to pinpoint where things went south. So I want us to break this down into transactions. What happened next? Then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened? Boom, that's where it went south. Oh, then we can backtrack and try to problem solve. This is really a problem solving tool. So if we just do A, B, C, boom, it's more helpful than not doing it. It doesn't give us as much information. So if you're taking notes on this ABC form, write down the goal for this. Our goal is not to stop problematic behavior from starting. That is an unrealistic goal. Our goal is